So just think about it. Noun sentences are the nouns by which you're attributing something about something, okay? And you could create a multiple way of utilizing noun sentences. You could say, for example, here's a 3-word noun sentence. Moshe hu ish. Moshe, we'll just translate this real quick. Moshe is a name. Hu, he, ish, man. So what do I need to do, right? I need to put the word is in between he and man. So Moshe, he is a man. Alright? Don't forget to put the indefinite article a in parentheses if you want to help yourself remember that this is an assimilated aspect of the language, but it doesn't exist as a word in the actual language itself. So Moshe, he is a man. Okay? So you could have 4, noun word sentences. Okay? So you can have 4 nouns that are used in a sentence that create the same element we're seeing here. So just understand when you're talking about, when we're looking at things that are noun sentences, we're saying, and I'm going to put down here, noun sentence. We're saying that only nouns exist, and I am going to have to implement some verb of existence. Alright, so I have to put some verb of existence here. It could be is, are, am, doesn't matter what, okay? Just remember, with noun sentences, verbs of existence are always used that we have to put in it in order for our minds to make sense of it in English. Where in Hebrew, it's all assumed. It's all part of the actual language structure itself. Which is important because when you know that, you start to break things down faster and easier, and you can start making sense out of it. Alright, so let's go back and focus on the thing that we learned over here. Vaidaber, we talked about, is a PL verb. Alright? So what do I need to know about PL verbs? PL verbs are important because they express intensified action. Okay? PL verbs are used to express intensified action. Now, what does PL verbs also do? Well, let me show you something here. If you have a PL verb, that's an emotion. Emotional verbs, we'll take like, for example, the word ahav. This is a PL verb, right? When you put the word ahav into a PL form, it intensifies this, but makes all verbs of emotion into an act of causation. Alright, so all of these become in PL form act of causation, which means now it's the cause of love. If I had the word hate, it would be in the PL form to cause hate. If I would, have here to be frustrated, it would be in the PL form to cause frustration, okay? That's one of the special things you have to understand as to what goes on with PAL when it brings into a PL form. When we're talking about intensified action, let's take the word shavar. Shavar in the PAL form means just to break. But when we take the word and make it into the PL form, it becomes to shatter. So now breaking, which was just a small issue, now becomes more intensified. That's where we get the concept of shattering. So therefore, we take it here and it becomes an intensified action. And this is very important to understand. It's very important to know and see the fact that when you're dealing with verbs of emotion, it becomes an act of causation. When you deal with verbs of action, it becomes an intensification. Makes it very simple. But very important to understand this. Very important to understand so that you can see that's why this is happening in the PL form. Because when you're talking about regular causation, like he fed versus he ate, this is not going to be in the PL form. This will be in the he feel form, and we'll learn that later. But this is important to at least understand this for the most part, to get an idea of how these verbs function and work. And we need to understand that when we're talking about intensification, we're talking about something more drastic is going on verbally in essence, as opposed to the simple action. Okay? So like to shake would be like to rattle back and forth in a PL form. It'd be more intensified than the simple just the act of just shaking. Okay? So that is PL versus PAL. We have to understand that. Very important to understand how PL verbs work, because when we're identifying a PL verb, we're immediately going, this is either two things. Either A, it's possibly a verb that's being intensified in action, or it's possibly that maybe this is an emotion that's being intensified as a causation now. Okay? And we have to know that when we're looking at the PL, we're understanding the fact that the PL is one of the 7 bidinim. There's literally 5 if you really want to think about it, okay? And in reality, if you want to think about it, let's say there's not even 5, let's say there's 4, okay? There's 4 forms. The other 3 forms are all passive forms, okay? So you have your nifil, which is your passive form for your pa'al. You have your pu'al form, which is your passive form for PL. And you have your hafal form, which is your passive form for hifil. So all the rest are the ones that actually have to do with more of the change of action other than the passive state. Okay? So in your chart, when you're going through it, you want to know how to classify these specific things. So you got to know what it is. So here, vayemer, this here is my pa'al, also known as kal in Hebrew. Kal, which literally means it's the basic simple action that's going on. And when we classify it, remember, we're looking for this. We're saying, is it pal or kal form? Is it PL? Or we write it like this, PL form. Is it nif'al? Which is the nif form. Is it hifil? Which is the he form. And is it hitpal? We call that hit. Okay? And underneath hifil is going to be hafal. Okay? And this is your passive. Under your PL is going to be your pu'al. And pu'al is also your passive. Your hifil is also your passive for pa'al. Okay? So we have different passive forms we're going to be utilizing. We just got to know what we're using. If we're using a PL, then I know that this is going to be under the PL chart by which I'm going to look for the verb. If it's the vayomer, which is the kal or the pa'al form, I'm going to look under the kal chart, And then of course we're going to identify this with one of the cases by which we need to learn here. Because what is so important about Vayomer, okay? Vayomer, we have the three categorization by which we have to identify all verbs, okay? And that is because certain things take place with certain verbs, all right? So here, because Aleph is in the first category, then we have to start classifying this in the Pi'al, or the Pa'al form, excuse me, and we're going to look for that as the first Alephs, okay? We're going to look under the first Aleph chart, because this is a special verb form that requires a certain vocalization, and only the first Aleph charts are going to contain this. And so this is why when we take, if you look at the verb chart that I created on the actual website, you'll see every verb that starts with Aleph, it's in the actual verb chart that's connected to the first Aleph, okay? All the verbs that are Shalem, they're in the Shalem chart. If you want to find out if it's to be Pa'al, Piel, Hifil, that's why the forms are listed underneath as the forms you will find written in Scripture. So if this is Nifil, so then you're going to go, I need the Nifil chart. Here's the verb, it's in the Hey ending chart, or here's it in the Aleph, first Aleph chart. So I'm looking for the Nifil form, and I'm going to go to the first Aleph chart that's going to give me the vocalization for this word. And that's how this is going to be done and carried out. And we have to know these things, we have to memorize these things so that we know how to properly vocalize our verbs and how to understand this, okay? So this is the end of lesson number 2. This is going to give you enough from this point to have a lot of understanding of what's been talked about in lesson 2 in the book. It's covered all the areas by which we're going to, even given an exposition, an exposure, of the preposition and what the preposition charts look like, as well as we've identified the fact of the 2 different verb forms, as well as the verb classification. Here we said the verb classification for the Vayomer is that the Aleph is one of the weak roots. And so this weak root follows the classification of called the first Alephs. And so we're looking for the first Aleph chart in order to vocalize Aleph Memresh into its past, present, and future forms. Okay? We also talked about the issue of how objects are used in relationship to prepositions, and what kind of objects we have, and what kind of things take place with the objects, what kind of differentiations there are, as well as we talked about the issue of a noun sentence. And we also covered over the issue of remembering the fact that when we're talking about verbs and we're talking about subjects, they always must agree. In your book, you're going to find that the verb and subject agreement is a little on the different side. And that's because they're using the word Elohim, and I changed it. You can see that everything else follows kind of the pattern of what you see in your book. I don't like the fact that they use the word God all the time in this book. However, to help facilitate a better, easy understanding, I ripped apart different words and used them so you can use the same sentence structure and come up with the same type of understanding. The only differentiation is when you're seeing the word Elohim, let's say the word Elohim is used here, okay? Elohim, and this is Vayidaber. The grammar of this is a special case by which a plural noun, like Elohim, is being made as to be read as a singular subject and not as a plural subject. And this is why it's so important to understand that when it says Vayidaber Elohim, it's not saying and gods spoke, because there is no plurality here. This is a singular verb utilizing the pronoun that identifies that this is a singular subject. So therefore we read it as and God spoke, and we know this is a singular subject. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time we go to lesson number 3 as we learn Mobile Hebrew on this website.